Good morning, everyone. Good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are, and welcome to this week's Weekly Energy Boost. My name is Elisheva, and I'm here this beautiful Monday morning with David. And we are here to share with you the lay of the land for the next, I do this every week now, lay of the land for the next 7 days, according to the wisdom of Kabbalah. The Weekly Energy Boost is your 7-day energy forecast. And this week we are talking about the next 7 days being replete with opportunities to take risks, jump into the unknown, and really leap into our next level. It's not a coincidence that this week's energy always falls in the month of Cancer, which is famous for the security and safety seeking part of us within every one of us, not only within people who are born under the sign of Cancer. And we're going to talk to you today about how to embrace those opportunities to break free from your comfort zone and leap into the joy. I mean, I don't know about you, David, but in preparing for this week's show, I was looking at a lot of stuff online, different articles, TED Talks, things like that. What do people look at risk taking? First of all, I found that the word risk is most associated with stocks and bonds and trading right now. So that threw me for a curve. That was a curveball for me. But most importantly, I was looking at these quotes from famous people for throughout history about the necessity to take risks. And we're not talking about spiritual quotes. We're talking about, philosophers and ex-presidents and things like that. And it was really all about how if you're not taking risks, you're not living. And yet at the same time, we seek or we look for security as a benchmark of success. And at the same time, I think for all of us, risk-taking means being insecure for a minute, risking that there might not be a safety net underneath us. So I want to talk to everyone today about that and the beauty on the other side of taking the risk. What is the real reward? What are the blessings and benefits we get in our lives from risk taking?
Okay, so where do we want to start?
Well,
I know you have some points.
I know. I want to preface this. I guess I should say that we're not advocating or promoting gambling, irresponsibility. I'm going to go on a date with this person, even though I'm married with 20 kids, right? We're not talking about taking risks. The word gambling, I don't even mean the typical sense of the word, right? I'm not talking about just going to a casino and betting it all. When we talk about risk-taking requires deep thought, contemplation, research. It's not about throwing caution to the wind and not caring what's going to happen tomorrow, right? We're talking about the risk-taking. It's really internal risks. Maybe we should have titled the show, Taking Internal Risks. And it may involve external effort and external uncertainty for a moment or suspension of belief for a moment, but it really is more of the breaking that inner desire for familiarity, for safety, for I think the word is security. That cushion of security that all of us depend on. We'd rather have the drama that we're familiar with than take the risk of having something unfamiliar but truly joyous.
All right, so let's break it down to something that's practical for everybody. People have decisions that they need to make every day with the major areas of their lives, which is they have financial or career, business decisions they have to make every day. They have relationship decisions that they need to make every day inside of their relationships, or to move on or to connect to new relationships. So as you're hearing what we're sharing, try to think for yourself where you're in a junction in your life where a decision has to be made. And then we'll break that down based on the things that we share so that you have more knowledge and wisdom about how to approach that. So we said relationships. People have decisions they need to make on a daily basis with regards to their health, short-term and long-term. And what else? What other kinds of decisions do people have to make? And you can throw things in the chat also. What are some other types of decisions that people feel they need to make now, or they're confronted with?
Okay, so from the people that I've been in touch with, let's say in the last few weeks,
Yep.
we're talking about everything from knowing that you have something important to say, something meaningful to say, and you're afraid to say it, right?
Okay.
That,
So conversational decisions that you need to make.
Right. And I think even when we talk about having a kind of confrontation with a loved one or someone at work, it's not only about, I think a lot of people think of the word confrontation as you did something wrong or I felt this way. Sometimes confrontation is being vulnerable. Sometimes confrontation is asking for help. And I think that there are a lot of us out there who perceive being open-hearted as dangerous, as volatile. That can create volatility that I'd rather put my feelings aside than risk having shit rocking the boat.
Okay. So if we have to break this down into some points, one of the things that I've learned with Kabbalah and with interacting with different types of people is people who are good at what they do or who are successful at any part of their lives. We all want to be successful. We want to be successful parents, husbands, wives, friends. We want to be good at whatever it is that we're doing. People don't really roll the dice. I've noticed too much. People are very good at what they do. They're not just, winging it and throwing and making decisions, haphazardly. They're taking very calculated risks. And one of the things I know personally is I don't like to make decisions where I'm not fully, I'm not doing everything in my power to almost control the outcome. I know that doesn't sound spiritual, but I'm going to explain what that means. Because we've learned in Kabbalah that when you don't know what to do nothing. Okay, that's one concept we've taught. You do nothing. You keep revealing the light of the Creator until you have clarity about what to do. So, for example, if you don't know you should leave a certain toxic situation, be it a relationship or a career position you have, what do? Well, we say you do nothing. You keep revealing the light, as we've learned in Kabbalah 1, which means working on myself, working on my consciousness, finding those fears, finding the little things that I can take responsibility for, and then you open up pockets of light, which then give you clarity about what to do in your life. So we've taught that. But we've also taught that being paralyzed and doing nothing is almost one of the worst things. So we said if you're quick to fail, you'll also be quick to succeed. So you should try many things, fail at many things, have setbacks, and that's positive. So it sounds like these two concepts, which we've talked about many times on our show, are
diametrically opposed.
Exactly. So let's first address that. And they're actually not different. They're actually very much in the same, because in both situations, and I hope everyone's following this, in both situations, the situation of, you know what, I'm just going to take a risk and do it. And if I mess up, I'll learn. And then the other decision of, I'm not going to do anything. I'm just going to wait patiently. I'm going to keep revealing more light in my life, more of the light of the Creator, and then I'll get clarity, and then I'll make a decision. These two things are actually the same. I'm going to explain why. And they're both calculated. In both cases, you are the one making a decision with strength and certainty. The problem in life is when there's outside forces, outside thoughts, outside desires, outside need for approval, where my thoughts are controlling me, my doubts are controlling me, my insecurity is controlling me.
Or other people's perceptions of me is controlling
Exactly.
me.
I'm being judged. I got to do something real quick.
I have to prove them wrong.
I have to prove them wrong. Every time there's a decision that you're making based on something that's coming from the outside, you're disconnecting yourself from the realm of the miracles. And whenever you're making the decision, so if I make a decision with certainty that I'm going to do nothing, and I'm choosing that, and I'm choosing that based on...
But doing nothing isn't sitting on your couch eating popcorn watching Netflix. It means making an effort in the areas you do have certainty about.
Right. So we said doing nothing, meaning making that one risky decision to leave or stay, let's say. So I'm not going to make a decision, but I'm going to work really hard to reveal more information, more knowledge, more of the light of the Creator through my own spiritual work. Because someone asked me recently, and they said, well, I don't have clarity about what to do with a certain business decision, And I said, well, what do you have clarity about in your life right now that you know you should change, actually? They said, well, they do have issues in a relationship, something totally separate than business. So I said, if you go and heal or fix the problems you have in your relationship, the light from that will carry over into your business and give you more clarity there. And the reason why you're never clear about what to do in your business is because you're still stuck in your relationship. And a lot of times people don't realize that all of these vessels in our lives are connected.
Every compartment in our lives is connected. We
Exactly.
perceive them as separate and distinct, but that's one of those illusions we talk about. We talk about how the physical world is replete with illusions. That's one of them.
Right.
That you think the energy that you're generating in the office doesn't come home, or that your children have nothing to do with your bank account. It's all connected, and that's one of the reasons that revealing light in an area of your life where you do have strength and clarity and conviction will generate clarity in the areas of your life where you don't.
And sometimes saying revealing light seems abstract to people. We've had sessions where we talk about the unseen world, and if it's easier for people to understand, just think about it this way. Every time you do something that is reactive or negative or selfish, and you create a negative force, a negative entity, and it could be in the thoughts level, the word level, or the action level. And every time you have a transformational moment, and in Kabbalah 1, we learned when you're reactive and you pause, and then you transform, and you look inside and see even what made you reactive. All that whole process creates positive forces. And the more negative forces you have, the more you're going to run into chaos or pain or judgment or things just slowing down in your life. It's just a function of how many negative versus positive forces you create. When we say revealing the light of the Creator, we're talking about revealing those positive forces. It's just another way of saying the same thing. So I just want people to understand that. And if you could see the balance of positive and negative forces, it would actually become very mathematical and very clear for you, because as you're talking, let's say you're talking bad about somebody because you're hurt and you're upset and you're just trying to put the other person down, and you're talking to your friend and you said a total of 136 words in that 5-minute conversation, you actually see 136 negative forces that are created. Imagine like little demonic forces.
You might see your bank account draining or your health battery draining as you're talking. You'd shut up really quickly.
We'd shut up really quick. And the reason why we're not allowed to see those things is because the Creator wanted to give us free will to choose to transform. Because if we all saw immediately the positive and the negative, well, there's no more free will. We'd all immediately stop being negative and immediately run after what's positive, because we would get that feedback immediately. But then there's no free will. There's no me choosing.
Right. And David and I often talk about how we're born under the sign of Pisces. Pisces tend to be risk averse, typically.
Yeah.
I personally also have many, many planets in my chart that are water, so it makes me especially by nature risk averse. And one thing that really helped me break out of that desire to stay tranquil and comfortable and safe is you don't know what you don't know. That statement, I don't know who said it first, where it originates, but the fact that you don't know what you don't know doesn't just mean knowledge, right? You know what you know, you don't know what you don't know, but you also don't know what you've never experienced, what you've never felt, what you've never encountered. Mm-hmm. And to me, the fact that what that really translated for me, those first few million times I repeated it to myself, was you don't know how happy you can be. You don't know how much love you can experience. You don't know how much abundance you can have, or you don't know how more abundance, more health, more happiness feels. What's the risk? What are you losing by not trying to have more? And that, to me, that was the carrot that got dangled right outside of my comfort zone that made me say it's worth the risk, because either there's another sort of cliche, either I win or I learn. And to me, that made it clear that that's not to say that I don't sometimes second guess, what I want to say, or is it worth doing this, or, do I have that safety net? And I want to talk about the safety net in a minute also. But the idea that I can only gain more by daring. Mm-hmm. that helped me tremendously to break out of my desire to play it safe, to keep the status quo, not to rock the boat, use whatever phrase you feels comfortable for you. But the reality is that we only grow our capacity to experience fulfillment by stretching ourselves. Literally, like that's what it's. If you can't stretch yourself, or literally, let's say it the other way, I don't want to threaten anybody. Stretching yourself is what makes that container bigger to have more fulfillment, whatever that fulfillment feels like for you.
I want to give a couple steps that people can follow if they're in the midst of, at least they feel they need to make a decision in life. The first thing, and there's some physical steps and then the spiritual steps, because we always like to combine both on this show. First thing is, if I have to make a decision in my life, I will always ask a certain amount of people who have had to make the same type of decision, who have successfully made a decision in that world, who I trust their point of view. And I'll ask maybe 5-10 people, depending on how big the decision is. And sometimes that can actually torture somebody because you hear so many points of view, you become immobilized. I personally find that hearing all the points of view, writing them down, creating a pros and cons list, like really parceling it out, helps me, because part of why that is also spiritual is I will tell the Creator, I'm about to make a decision. I only want to make a decision that's best for my soul. So really this is step one. I want to make a decision that's best for my soul, not best for my comfort zone, not what I think. In giving credit to what Elisheva said, I don't know what I don't know, but the Creator does know. Creator does know everything. So why would I make a decision based on my brain? It's limited. I'd rather make a decision based on the Creator's connection. So I'll tell the Creator, I don't know what I don't know. So what I ask of you is, I'm going to talk to 5 people. I ask that you make those 5 people a messenger for me. And I'm totally open. I don't want to steer this one way or another, because what's dangerous is if you're looking for a certain answer, you're actually closing the Creator off from telling you what's right and what's wrong. Because it says that the direction you want to go is the direction the Creator will take you. If you want to do something really badly in your heart and you ask 5 people what you should do, the Creator will tell all those 5 people to tell you the same thing that's in your heart. And that's kind of scary. So you really got to be honest with yourself and say, I'm 100% open. Really. Even if you're faking it, tell the Creator, I'm not there yet, but I still give you permission. And then you ask those 5 people. And you'll start to hear things that are maybe painful, maybe not painful, maybe whatever. But designate them to be a channel. I think Karen Berg told us to do, that's how she makes decisions. She asks the Creator, and she asks even random people. She said she asks random people, not even people she knows. So that's step one. You want to add anything to that?
No.
No? Okay. All right. Step 2, spoke to a guy, and this rang true for me because it's also very Kabbalistic.
You better finish all your steps, though, by the way.
Because I know people get upset when I don't.
People get upset when you don't.
Well, I didn't say how many steps I had.
Okay, good.
So you can't hold me to it.
Good.
Can't hold me to it.
Perfect. That's what we're going to do. Don't number them.
Don't limit. I'm never going to say it anymore. So step 2 is, he told me whenever he makes a big decision in his life, first he falls in love with the decision, and then he makes sure to fall out of love with it. And then he goes, and then he decides, and then he asks himself again, would I do it? This is really important because we all get excited about stuff. How do I know if that's from my soul or that's from the opponent? You got to fall out of love with something. Then you know. A lot of times it's funny, I saw somebody I followed on Instagram. They met somebody, and I think they got engaged like 4 months later. Nothing wrong with that. Of course, 2 years later, they're not married, they're divorced. They got married and then divorced immediately. But they got engaged, and I said to myself, there's only one problem with this engagement. You fell in love, but you didn't fall out of love yet. You didn't have the, I never want to marry, I don't want to be with this person, man. You got to have that. So I think it's important. You got to love something and then not love it, and then decide to, then you can make a decision if it's for you or not. Because that any initial desire is always coming from the opponent. Always. Doesn't matter what it is. It could be a good thing. It could be a bad thing. Any initial excitement you have, and there's reasons for this deeper in the study of Kabbalah beyond the scope of this show, much in the deeper studies of what's called the 10 luminous emanations. But if you first are excited about something, you got to fall out of love with it in order to know if it's really meant for your soul. So I think that's an important part of the process. It can be buying something, committing to something, deciding to do something, moving somewhere. You love it. Oh my God, I love it. It speaks to me. My soul's meant to be there. Okay. Now you got to fall out of love with it. You got to see why it's bad, what's wrong with it. Everybody should tell you what's bad about that situation. That's number 2.
I don't want to add.
No,
I want to pause the
People have questions?
flow. Well, to me, it sounds like you're speaking to an external, or I've got to make a move. Maybe I'm, representing the other people that their risk taking is more internal.
Okay.
And I think
Give me an example.
I gave you the example before. Speaking up, opening my heart.
Okay.
Walking. I even think that ending a relationship is more an internal decision than an external decision. Deciding to move out of a house is the effect of the risk of.
I agree.
I'm willing to be alone rather than stay in this relationship that isn't revealing any more light. To me, and what I've learned in my years of not only studying but also guiding people with the wisdom of Kabbalah, is that the greatest risk that you can take is changing, being a different person tomorrow, right? A lot of us, we hold on to, we'd rather stay comfortable. We choose security over happiness. And maybe I'm continuing my point from before and you're continuing your point from before, and we're just going to play tennis for the next 30 minutes. But the idea that the greatest risk you can take is transformation, right? I've worked with a lot of people. I'll give you a more tangible example. Person realizes, I don't want to gossip anymore. But if I stop gossiping, what are my friends and I going to talk about when we go out? Right. So there is a risk in showing up differently, a risk I may lose my friends. I may fall out of my social circle. I may no longer be looked at as a good person to come to for advice. There's many different ripples that could come from. I find that, fill in the blank, the gossip one is just one that came to me. I had a conversation with somebody recently about it. But if I show up as a different person in my life, I will be happier, but there may be casualties along the way.
So I will summarize and clarify what I'm hearing you're saying. What I'm saying, we're basically saying two different things that are important. What I'm saying is I'm giving steps in terms of making certain decisions in your life where you're not clear if it's right or wrong for you. What Elisheva is saying, which is powerful, is more when you know you have to transform something internally, it's always going to feel like a risk. Because the reason why you're holding on to that attribute, be it the need for approval, be it anger, be it control, you've been holding on to it your whole life because it serves you in some way. It supports your lifestyle. It supports your identity. You're angry because you've noticed you get more done when you're angry. Or you look for everyone's approval because you noticed it's easier to have a life where everybody likes you. So why have a life where people are against you? And therefore, when that moment comes and you know you need to let go of the old you or the old way of doing something, it's always going to feel like a risk. In those situations, and I will attest to that, in those situations, when you have to transform a negative quality, it is all about taking that risk. And so it's the points I'm sharing have less to do with that. That is different. That is, I mean, maybe they still apply in some way, but when you have to transform something, you got to do it. Moving to Charlotte, North Carolina, is not something you would like to move there. You're not sure if you need to move there. That's different. And you follow my steps. Changing your anger, that has to be done. So that's not that's
not optional.
That's not optional.
You don't need clarity about that. You just need to do it.
Yeah, yeah. Healing that thought of that person who you're still angry about, even though you think you let it go, you still think about that person. That's not optional. That is making toxic everything in your life. You got to figure that one out, and you got to figure it out fast. So
now it's your turn to share more from your list, and we'll come back to me shortly and learn more about how to break those internal risks.
Before we do that, do write your comments because we're reading them and it's inspiring us in which direction
And
we should go.
everybody in Charlotte, North Carolina is seriously hurt by what you just said.
I said it because someone's thinking it. It's in someone's mind and they were thinking about going to Charlotte. And if it was you, put it in the comments. Okay. Put it in the comments. So this is the time we usually ask people to comment and share and like, because it helps our engagement and it broadens our audience like every week. And I do want to take a moment, and we'll say it at the end of the class also.
This is not a class.
At the end of the show, that I'll be doing a Global Kabbalah 1 that is pay as you want. So if you can't afford anything, that's okay. And if you can't afford something, it's going to go towards helping this program. And we've done 2 of them so far. We've had thousands of people attend both.
I know actually a lot of our listeners
you
joined that
moderate
one.
that.
Yeah.
A lot of our listeners did with Eitan.
Yeah.
The next one was
so
with
if you
Marcus.
missed it, then you have the opportunity to do it live with David now.
Yeah, so Eitan did the first one. Marcus did one more for Europe. I think we did one in Mexico. We had like 5,000 people.
We have 5,000 people for Latin America.
Yeah. So I will do the next one. And it's different. So even if you took the last couple ones, you can take it again. It's going to be a whole new format. Similar concepts, but presented in a different way. And if you can't afford anything, that's okay. And if you can afford, it's pay what you can. So it's by donation. Anything you can give really helps. It all goes to charity. And
that means that your registration for the class is a tax deduction.
Is it?
Yeah. If it's a donation, it's tax deductible.
Okay. I didn't know that.
That's very cool.
So, and it's all going to charity. So Ezra will throw the link up now if people want to register, but also towards the end of the class, just remember, we'll say it again. So let's keep going through
and we'll also say this is not a class.
That's correct. All right. So here's the third thing I would throw in the decision-making process is I love to make lists. So big decisions, there are a couple of big decisions that I'm making in my life right now. I have a whiteboard, and I like to write all of everything on the board. And I think a lot of times we all get confused because we try to keep everything in our brain. And physically having a list is so powerful because you got a brain dump. And the reason why this is important, it's because when you remove something from your brain, it creates space for like those backup subconscious thoughts to move in the front of the line to become conscious thoughts. There's a certain amount of load that we all can handle. It's in the same way, it's kind of like your body can only handle something when you release. It sounds really bad.
This is the time where I crawl under the table when David talks about going to the bathroom.
Forget about the bathroom. That's an obvious one. But even when you sweat, when you detox something, then your body starts moving. So everything starts moving to the front of the line. And it's the same thing with our thoughts. A lot of us have anxiety and stress because we have so much in our mind and we're not dumping it. So transcendental meditation is also really powerful. I don't do it. I've tried it. I found that Kabbalistic meditation was better for me, but I know so many people who do it, 20 minutes in the day, 20 minutes in the evening. And it's a way of them releasing those thoughts so that more clarity can come. It's just one of the benefits. So writing down the pros and cons of any decision you're going to make and keep adding to that list and adding whatever thoughts, just dumping it on a paper, on a board, whatever, you will see that you're going to have clarity immediately. So that's the third step.
So my digression is actually in response to some comments we're getting on the feed that when David said asking people, when you're not sure what to do, asking people, or that Karen Berg, I saw Karen do it many times working closely with Karen. It's not about me sitting down with David, showing him my business plan and asking him what does he think. It's more along the lines of asking random people to download answers. So
it's two different things. So it's two different things. There's the random approach, and then there's actually...
No, my point, and I think the point of what some of the people are saying here is that sometimes if you tell people... First of all, in Kabbalah, we often talk about how if you have something you're working on, you shouldn't share it with too many people, right? Like you should protect what you're working on. That's number one. I'm arguing with you. Number two is, what if people put negative energy into what you're saying, or they have their own preconceived... Like if you give them too much information, you might even be tainting the water in a bit.
Yeah, you're bringing another spiritual lesson into the mix, which is also important to know.
A lot of people are asking questions about sharing it
because we've talked about it on the show.
Dangerous.
So if I'm going to ask a group of smart, let's say I have 10 smart friends, and I'm going to say, well, I'm going to make this decision, or I'm going to hire this person, or I'm going to hire a company, or whatever I'm going to do. And I ask these 10 people, what do you think about that?
It's like a focus group.
It's like a focus group. I think focus groups are tremendous because I've said this so many times. Everybody thinks their baby's not ugly, and your focus group will tell you if your baby's ugly. And that's important. That's important. I know sometimes people are selling a product and they just love the product. They love the packaging, they love the logo, but it's ugly. But they don't think it's ugly because they don't think their baby's ugly, and that's their baby.
So I've seen many times, I've done it myself as well, when you ask a random person who isn't an expert and doesn't have anything to do or knowledge or expertise, yes or no.
Yeah, you're taking it spiritual. You're asking that person to just be a messenger from God.
Right. I'm saying different. That I think that often is I've asked my children, one of the things that Kabbalah teaches is that young children are channels for the divine inspiration, Holy Spirit, call it what you want.
Sure.
And I've gotten unbelievable downloads from them. So there's the knowledgeable and informed focus group approach.
Yep.
And there is the random, spontaneous, I assign you to be a channel for the light force request. Yep. So I just want to make sure, because we have questions about both here on the feed. Now back to you.
Yeah. So I like the focus group. I think focus groups are huge with every decision that you make in your life. And then you have the data. And with that data, you can better approach it. And the creator is involved in that as well. As long as you ask the creator to be involved and you're open, creator's involved. That's the rule all the time.
Many times, though, I see that people, they're tired of the responsibility of choosing, and that's why they throw it to other people. Mm-hmm. What should I do? I don't know what I should do. What should I do? Not from a place of, I'm trying to see it from all angles. I want to expand my consciousness. I want to expand my bandwidth. But from reactive, I'm tired of the burden. I'm tired of the stress. I just want to get it over with. Tell me what to do.
Yeah, so this would be a whole different session because this has to do with the tikkun of the person, probably becoming disenchanted with what they're doing, with their lives, midlife crisis. This is a whole nother realm.
Okay.
Which is good. Now, if you're the type of person that is immobile, like I talk to people and then like 3 months later, I'm like, so how's it going? And they're in the same situation. Like, oh, I don't know. Is this one? I don't know.
Well, if for those people, you have to listen to last week's show. Because did you listen to last week's show, David?
Part of it.
Okay. So we talked last week.
I wasn't on that show.
Marcus and I talked last week about avoidance.
What was the topic called?
Self-sabotage.
Okay, go.
So we really focused on procrastination and avoidance, both of physical and spiritual things.
Yep.
And we talked about people who wait to have all their ducks in a row, wait to have all the information, wait to have no doubt whatsoever in the choice that they're making. And what we said to those people was, any movement is forward movement. If you're the type of person that is immobilized, as David is talking about, just do something. And that's what's going to open
This is correct. This is correct. So if I'm talking to people that I know they're just like scared all the time, like always afraid, always doubting themselves, they have to kind of break the wall and make a lot of decisions very quickly because they have a fear of failure. They have pain around that. And so that is something that I would actually do quickly. I wouldn't talk too much about. I would just make movements, take the data from the failure, and then you can have a focus group and say, this is what I did. This is what I came up with. What do you think should be my next step? But you got to have something to start with. And a lot of times people are just stuck. Here's another rule. If you've been stuck for more than 6 months in a certain situation, you have to take a whole different approach in how you're looking at it. Yeah, that's what I'll say about that.
Deep thoughts with David Ghiyam. I think it's also important to make sure that everybody's clear that, I think when we set out to risk something, when we dare, we muster up the courage to do something, we're worried or afraid that we're going to fail, right? I guess that would probably be the number one survey. If we surveyed everybody out there, what are you worried about? I'm worried about failing. Mm-hmm. Part of what we talked about last week also is not necessarily looking at failure as either you fail or you win, but really making sure that you realize as you venture off into the risks this week that setbacks are not failures. Mm-hmm. Pushback is not a failure. The fact that everybody doesn't applaud you when you do what you do isn't a sign of failure.
That's correct.
Those setbacks are there. I look at it as the resistance. When the universe sets us up with resistance, it's so that our muscles will get stronger. What I said before, either you win or you learn. So those moments where you feel the resistance or the pushback, or not everybody is excited or welcoming your changes or your shifts or your decisions, remember that just because someone doesn't like it or it doesn't go through the first time, I think that's one of the beautiful lessons of Mercury retrograde. That's a period we sometimes talk about it on the show. We're in it now, I think, until one more week, July 12th, I think it's over. Yeah. And I don't know if you guys have noticed this, but almost everything doesn't work the first time when Mercury is retrograde. You online shopping, suddenly your cart is empty. You're calling people on the phone, line, it gives you one of those callback messages. There's so much out there that doesn't work the first time. Now, you could look at that and say, well, it's not meant to be. I know a lot of people out there that look at any resistance as not meant to be. It's not, God's telling God, I got a message. Didn't work. It's not meant to be. That to me is a cop-out. I can't tell you that when I hit, place order the first time, that's me giving all my 100%, right? And I use that as a very generic example of making an effort. But if we give up at the sign of every little resistance or the first resistance, we won't do anything. And I'm sure many of you can give us examples in your life of the resistance that you've experienced and how you pushed forward. But part of, I think, making those risks successful is knowing that setbacks are not a bad thing, are not a bad sign, are not an indication that you made a mistake or you shouldn't keep pushing through.
I agree. It just came to me as you were talking, the fourth thing that I wanted to talk about on the list. And this is not a plug. This is just to share information. Marcus, who was on the show last week, he does part of his niche, right? We all have niches. Part of his niche is he does like very high-level business coaching. So I think he has like 7 students. They have companies, small to large companies. And he comes in and he helps revamp and revolutionize the company and the consciousness and the people and whatever. And he breaks it all down. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because I recently hired a business coach for myself. Every coach needs a coach. So I hired somebody. And then I've been talking to Marcus about what I've been learning. And now Marcus is implementing the same things in his coaching. One of the most powerful things that I learned is I've had this coach for about 2 months now. And is that there's so...
that everybody's going to ask for their number.
Yeah. No. There will be a time that I talk to Marcus because he has a capacity and it's not a mainstream program yet. And we've been talking about how to make it mainstream for more people, and which pretty much involves...
We also want to bring Marcus back on the show another few times. Yeah. I made him commit to that last week.
Yes. So I have a couple of students that I'm going to introduce Marcus to that I feel like I just realized I just saw so many limitations, despite what I do. I saw so many limitations. I don't think my baby's ugly, so I saw so many limitations.
Your babies are so cute. Stop.
I saw so many limitations in the way I conduct myself in the world of business. So anyways, what I learned was that there are so many issues that are bottlenecking that are kind of like I just kind of put them somewhere thinking one day we'll get to them, or I don't really want to deal with this right now. And there's so many other things we got to do anyway, so let's just do that later. And what the coach helped me do, which then I spoke to Marcus about, and he's helping me from the spiritual side to look at it, is to actually just, it sounds so simple, to write down all the things I feel I have issues with when it comes to business. And even if I don't want to deal with it now, or don't have time or the bandwidth or whatever, and there's so many other important things to do, it's really important to be clear about your issues. And I think a lot of people aren't clear about what their issues are. It just kind of exists out there in the what's
atmosphere?
The word? It's not atmosphere. Ether. That's the word I was looking for. It's like out there in the ether. I'll get to it when I can. I'm not sure now is the time. And that's true. You'll get to it in the future. But you have to be clear about what it is. Because when you're not clear about something, it's controlling you. When you're clear about something, you're controlling it. And it always goes back to that. Are you controlling it, or is it controlling you? So I think that is in no particular order, but that's the fourth thing I was going to talk about. How can you even take a risk if you're not clear about what risk you're taking? How can you even make a decision if you're not clear about the problem that you're having? A lot of people have the ostrich mentality where they put their head in the sand. They feel it's there.
Just keep swimming.
Huh?
Just keep swimming.
What do you mean?
You see that Finding Nemo?
I didn't find it.
David.
My kids.
Just keep swimming. That's it. Just keep swimming. Just keep swimming. Just keep swimming.
Sounds good.
Yeah. Well, because then you don't have to deal with the jellyfish that are stinging you. to
Oh,
death.
you're saying that's what people do.
Yeah.
They just keep swimming as opposed to dealing with what's going on.
Right.
Got it. So I would say the issues list, and that's I think the fifth thing that in the coaching programs, like the fifth thing I'm dealing with is, okay, now let's make a list of our issues. We got our vision, we got our goal, we got all that stuff. Now let's create the issue list. So I think that is really important. People become clear about what's really the problem in their relationship, in their business, whatever it is. I think that's something that we should keep in mind.
I don't know if this is the last thing we'll get to talk about. I guess that depends on how interested David is in making the point. But I think that for those of us who have been studying Kabbalah, many of you are just finished Kabbalah 1 or you're about to start Kabbalah 1, hopefully. There is a class in the Kabbalah 1 series where we talk about how it's really in those times of darkness, of lack of clarity, that the light is most strongly there. The light force of the Creator is there for us in ways that we don't perceive, right? Because we think we're sitting in the dark.
Yeah.
And whenever taking a risk, whenever daring to do something you've not done before, whenever you have to go against the flow, and that's something we talk about a lot here as well, the real key to quote unquote not failing, the real key to making every step a forward step is knowing that the Creator is my safety net, right? That even if I don't land where I expect once I take the leap, that's also for my best. That's also in my best interest, and that's also what's best for everyone that's involved. I know a lot of people that don't take steps. Marcus spoke last week about the person who doesn't leave the relationship for the kids, right? So and then we had this whole conversation about how it's actually oftentimes in the best interest for the kids, because instead of showing the kids what an unhealthy relationship looks like, there are other options. Yeah. But the idea in taking that risk, and it's funny because I think actually Monica said it to me many, many years ago when I was going to get married, and she said, are you excited? How do you feel? I remember we were actually out at having drinks with a bunch of girlfriends. It was actually quite fun. We should do it again one day in 2021. So she said to me, you look worried. What are you worried about? And I said, well, what if it doesn't work out? And she looked at me and she said...
She said that about your marriage?
Yeah.
Right before you got married?
Before I get...
And she loves Mordechai.
So I do too. But understandably, I was a little bit risk averse at that point.
Yeah.
And she said to me, so you get a divorce.
So you just get a divorce?
Yeah.
That's what she said?
Yeah. Like, what's the big deal? Now, I had been through a divorce already.
It is a big deal.
So it wasn't the smallest deal, but what she showed me, or what the message I got from that was, you're right. Like, if I'm going forward with it, and I know that if it's the wrong decision, and this is something that I work on with my students, I've had many students get married over the years, and one of the things, it's almost like a mantra we repeat, he or she repeats to themselves over and over and over again is, if this is not the right thing, I want to know. As much as I'm throwing myself into the wedding preparations and the honeymoon and building a life together and everything, I don't want to be so attached to this person that I don't see that the baby's ugly.
Correct.
Right? I want to know if it's the right thing for me, and knowing that the light will catch me if I fall. Yeah. Knowing that even if it's painful, even if it's difficult, even if I have to make some tough decisions, I have that safety net. And so, when you think about the friends that you have in your life, right? What's the most important quality for you and a friend? Pop quiz.
Me, what's the
yeah.
That every time I leave a conversation with them, I feel inspired, I feel supported, I feel motivated. That's for me like a measure. If I'm leaving conversation drained, then I know that there's no synergy in the relationship.
Okay. Let me ask the question differently then, because
Okay.
you didn't give me the answer I'm looking for.
All right.
What's the most important quality for you in your friends?
I would say most important quality.
And David is definitely, what do they call it when you're unusual? A black sheep? No, something. You always stand out in a crowd.
David is, what do you call unusual?
David always stands out, so I'm not sure he's going to give me the answer I'm looking for. But pop quiz. Maybe you guys can answer also in the comments. What's the most important
someone that
quality?
Someone that I find that inspires me.
But that's a friend. We're talking, yeah? Okay, yeah. He missed it again. The most people, most normal folk will say something along the lines of trustworthy. I want to make sure I want to know that I can trust them. I want to know that they're going to be loyal. They're going to be there for me, that no matter what, I can count on them. That is often, I would say, in the top 3, at least for most people. Here, kindness, loyalty, truth, sincerity, honesty.
That's all obvious.
It's not obvious. My point is, that's what we have. Like, you want to know that that your friend has your back, that no matter what, they're going to be there for you. That's what we need to develop in our relationship with the Creator. And that, to me, is one of the greatest benefits of taking risks, is that your relationship with the Creator is strengthened.
Because you're forcing, I see, yeah.
You understand what I'm saying? I know I took a long road to get to the point, but that knowledge that no matter what, or what, like Monica was saying to me basically was, you'll be okay no matter what. What are you worried about?
Because you have to kind of put yourself in that position where the Creator can catch you so you know that the Creator exists.
Exactly. And Kabbalistically speaking, there is 2 kinds of trust. There's 2 kinds of certainty. There's the certainty you have before that you take the risk, which is kind of like hope.
Yeah.
And then once you've taken the risk and you've either, quote unquote, succeeded, you've made your mark, you've reached your mark, or you've fallen, but you've been caught, your certainty is stronger there.
Correct.
And that this week is really our guiding light, that knowing that whatever risk I'm going to take, small or large, obvious to other people or deep in the deepest recesses of my heart, I know that there is a safety net for me, and I don't really need to worry. I may need to be responsible, right? We said don't do something dangerous. Yep. I want to say risky. That's not the right word. Don't do something that is going to create damage. Although I guess there are risks that David was talking about that could create damage technically. But make sure that you do your research, you do the due diligence, you check yourself, but you also know that there is a space that you have to traverse, that there is that in that risk, in that space, that below you, beneath you, you have a net to catch you. And if you're not sure that you have the net, right? What do often people say, well, how do I know the light's going to catch me? What do you say to someone like that?
Let's find out.
Dude, it's so inspiring. I might tell that person, the way to make sure that net is strong is to do other things. This is another way of saying what David said before. You work on the areas in your life where you have clarity. Make sure that you are revealing light in other ways. Go out and share. Do something. Inspire people. Help other people. Find ways to strengthen that net so that you really don't, again, what are you worried about is, maybe the message for the week. But at the same time, know that how strong that net is up to you as well.
Love it. I love it. Well, as we are wrapping up our show, I wanted to do the Kabbalah One plug again. The Global Kabbalah One starts July 13th, so that's exactly a week from today, Monday. It's going to be Monday, 5:30 p.m. Pacific time. 5:30 p.m. Pacific time, and it's open for everyone all around the world. It's going to be an awesome format. We're anticipating at least 1,000 people, obviously hoping for more, and it's affordable because it's pay whatever you can. You want to pay nothing because you're skeptical and you want to see if it adds value, great. If you want to pay $1, great. If you can donate more, it's going to help us fund the class and support more and more people to study it because we have a large team, a large staff, and a lot of technology behind it. So we're trying to do this new method where it's truly by donation, whatever you have the means to pay. And obviously, if you pay for it, you can get more from it as well. So it's going to be. What's the link?
It's already been posted.
I know it's posted.
We also have an image, if I'm not mistaken.
Because so many people are not actually watching this on Facebook; they're watching it through.
So if you're listening on the podcast, email energyboost@kabbalah.com, and we will send you the link so that you can get registered. It does start a week from today, July 13th, which is a Monday. So you have at least the week to get registered.
Did they post the link now? Just so I can read it. Oh, there it is.
In the comments, yeah.
Oh my gosh, it's a long one. I can't.
Well, the good news is you can also go to Kabbalah.com. You can go. By the way, our ads are running on Instagram and Facebook for it. So if you see any Kabbalah Center ads, you can click the link and you will be taken to register. And I guess we'll hear next. Maybe next Monday you can also share with us a little bit about how it's different from the masterclass.
Yes, it's very different than the masterclass.
Since we're completely out of time and then some, we'll hear more about that next week.
Right.
Have a fabulous 7 days until we get to spend time with you again. And thanks for joining us on the Weekly Energy Boost.